You're listening to the Unmitigated podcast, the podcast that brings to light the hidden risks business owners and entrepreneurs take every day that may not be covered by traditional insurance. Here's your host, Van Carlson.
Hello, Van Carlson with SRA 831B Admin and the Unmitigated podcast. Thanks for joining us and listening to us today. We have a special guest, a dear friend of mine, David Spann. He's the chairman of Vistage. We're going to be talking about Vistage today and how it's been an integral part in our operations here at SRA. My staff loves it when I come back from a Vistage meeting. We have all sorts of good ideas. But no, I think it's been a huge help for me. So first tell us about yourself, David.
Yeah.
And then also, how you got started in Vistage.
Yeah.
And then, really, what is Vistage? So,
Three questions.
Yeah, yes, sir.
So the first one.
I try to make it simple for myself, hard on you.
The who am I question. So I say I'm a mutt. People come with pedigrees and certificates, and I just say, look, if that's what you want, that's probably not going to be me. 21 years as a USDA Forest Service employee. My last land management job was in New Meadows, 250,000 acres of land. The perfect young man's world. It was absolutely stunning. And the world changed. It changed just like it's changing today. And politics got so thick back then, and I just said, there are more things to do. And so I took an early retirement. And I took an early retirement with nothing. Like, I had no idea what I was going to do. And I ended up with two guys in a coffee shop in Salt Lake City, of all places. And we got to talking about, they had just written a thing called the Agile Manifesto. Something for the software development world to build software in a collaborative way. It was absolutely fantastic. And we got into talking about what they were doing and what I was not doing, but what I could do for them, which was executive coaching, organizational change, organizational development. And they said, would you like to join us? And I said, how much does it cost? And they said, nothing. And I said, I'm in. And I literally put up a shingle that says Agile Adaptive Management. Still have that company as a shell. And went around the world consulting, building teams, helping companies be more agile.
And would you say you learned that at the forestry department?
Well, see, that's an interesting thing. The answer is yes and no. So I didn't learn the technology side. What I learned was the human side. So imagine you send a wildland firefighting crew out with no advice, no direction, and then you send 4 or 5 others out just like them to fight a fire. That's how we used to fight fire. People died, fires weren't put out, communications broke down, and so we literally got all the agencies together to work collaboratively, build a new thing, which is called the Incident Command System, which is still in place and works on almost every major incident around the world.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so I just translated that into the software world. And nobody knew that you could do that. And that's what we did.
You put a lot of fires out in business, so it makes perfect sense.
Right? And I got that experience as an executive coach, and then I got commoditized. The company came in and said, we can do what Spann says he can do in 18 months, we can do in 48 hours. Not true. And kind of put me out of business. I said, I'm going to move back to Boise, Idaho. I don't know again what I'm going to do. And somebody said, hey, Vistage has been chasing you for 2 years. Isn't it time you said yes? I said yes. And ever since,
the rest is history.
The rest is history. Yeah.
No, that's cool, man. I wondered how. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah. It's a very, very curious way of getting into executive coaching. I owned my own consulting firm, but in terms of the complexity of running a company, I've never been a CEO at that level. So it's been all curiosity and learning. It's kept me out of trouble.
Yeah. Well, maybe sometimes in trouble.
Yeah, maybe sometimes in trouble if I'm playing with you.
Exactly.
So what is Vistage?
Yes.
Right? Vistage is a very simple game. I like to describe it. If anybody's ever watched a golf match or tried to play golf, the trainers always say, get the 7-iron and the putter out and put everything else back in your cart. Because if you can learn how to stroke with a 7-iron, you can hit any other club, and then we got the putter, and that's a whole different world. But you have 2 clubs, it's always the same. Inside of Vistage, you have different groups set up for you to consider, but all of them are the same. You're going to have executive speakers who come in and talk about topics from, we had one yesterday on leadership and leadership development and personal choice, all the way to specific things like finance, marketing, sales. We have the speaker. We have the executive coach, that is me, that helps run things. And thirdly, we have the 45,000 members worldwide that acts as a network for people to learn and garner from. So a very, very simple construct. The value gets created when members like yourself bring big topics. And we just had that yesterday. We had 4 topics, and the person puts that topic on the table, and the rest of us ask questions, and then we offer solutions. Hopefully the person goes off and does something better.
Yeah, and from my experience at Vistage, there's peer groups, which in my industry wouldn't really, but I do work with peer groups around the country, and they're similar in industry, and there's value there.
There
absolutely.
is huge.
I think the big value Vistage brings to me personally is the different variety of industries that's at the table. Always shocking how very similar problems. It doesn't matter what industry. And at the same time, I think what my group brings that's unique, and sometimes hard for me to relate to, but I certainly appreciate their point of view, is a hired gun to run a company versus a founder.
Yes. The person who owns the company has risk capital on the table. And psychologically, having risk capital is like, you're going to take it out of my pocket? I don't think so. Versus the person who's hired, that cash is coming into my pocket, and it's a different relationship.
Wildly. Very. And I would say, from my point of view, it's given me the optics of other points of view I don't think I'd ever consider or appreciate. Because, as a founder, and I think I'm definitely, most founders are the way I am, is just I make my own decisions. I'm not looking to decision by committee or have to talk somebody else into that decision, right? I mean, it's a very different approach. And sometimes I can be a bull in a china shop,
Sometimes. Sorry, that was fun.
Point taken. But at the same time, though, it's and the act of listening. I mean, I think from a leadership standpoint of leading your company, whether you're a hired gun or you're a founder of the company, or you're second generation owner of the company, or whatever is going on in your business life. This podcast is called Unmitigated, and there are things that we go blindly through life not knowing, because we don't know what we don't know, right? I mean, it's said every day, right?
We had a member just recently say these words about his P&L. He didn't understand how and this is odd, reducing expenses actually increased his net more than selling. He'd heard that, he'd heard it, he just didn't know the math. And he had, until somebody showed him the math on the P&L, he just didn't know.
And I would tell you, more likely the person that showed him was a hired gun. I mean, some of the founders of companies, they know their craft well, they've got great passion for their product, but the details of running a day-to-day business isn't necessarily there as much, or you learn the hard way. And there's nothing more expensive than learning the hard way on your P&L.
Right.
So, and that's another great value add that I think just having those different with Vistage. I think I had a friend of mine refer me in to talk to you, and I had heard about it, and I was like, oh man, is that really time for me to look into these things? And it's always on the back of your mind. And the danger about running a business is making decisions in a vacuum. And I think,
yes.
I think with maturity and time of running a business, you start to look for other people's opinions.
Yeah.
I think you should always search those things out. I could tell you in the beginning, no.
Yeah.
I knew what needed to be done, and I was just going to go do it.
Yeah.
But as you mature, not just from personally maturing, but from a business standpoint matures, you do need outside counsel. And the fact that you're getting outside counsel with people that are at your level but different industries, I can't tell you how much of an advantage that's been to me and my company personally.
Yeah.
And it's draining at times. And when those days, we have an all-day session between the executive speaker in the morning a lot of times, or an all-day session with and we're just trying to work through some issues with everybody in that group. It can be pretty draining at times. And nothing's, what I like about business too is nothing's taboo to talk about. Right. Meaning that from personal issues to business, right? I mean, most of us will resort to business because some of us don't like to talk about personal issues, but personal issues come up. And what's been interesting dealing with subjects of things to talk about is what turns out to be a business issue actually was a personal issue.
Right.
More times than not.
And almost all of us carry limiting beliefs about our capacity, limiting beliefs about how the world works, and having that group of people around us to check what we're thinking.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, if you go back to when you and I first met, and if you were to give yourself advice, like in that conversation, what did you not know that you know today about this experience?
You remember I was supposed to ask all the questions. You weren't supposed to ask.
Well.
But you're doing your job. Okay. No, I would say this, that slow to judge.
Uh-huh.
I mean, when you're running your own show and you've threaded the needle and you can become, I wouldn't say narcissistic, but you can become an egomaniac pretty damn quick, and you think you're right about everything.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting sitting in those day sessions and being open-minded enough, I guess, at the same time to be able to draw your, what you thought, because we all jump to stuff. I mean, it's just what we do. I mean, I assume stuff all the time. I try not to. I would say with maturity, I'm doing less of that, thanks to Vistage, because I've been in situations where I was quick to judge, and I realized that that's not what's going on here. And at the same time, listening, I think, was a huge thing too. I mean, didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Honestly, when I joined, I was there, and you say it a lot of times, and I appreciate what you say. You're here for yourself. Right? You're here to be selfish. You're here to, you're here to get the most out for yourself. And a lot of times as founders again, or people that like taking care of other people, that's not really something that enters into your mind.
Yeah, we're not trained to do that.
No, not at all. Because I think we're all selfish to some degree, but when you talk about it, and at the same time, I've grown a lot because of Vistage. And it's because of that different perspective. I'm probably better not only as a CEO and as business owner. Honestly, I'm probably better as a family man as well.
That's great.
Yeah, and because people have problems. I mean, it doesn't matter.
All of us do.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. And not having the ability to go talk to a group that is just no judgment, and being able to get that out in front of peers that are similar at level of where you're at and your responsibilities day to day, and in their feedback. I mean, I think it's a huge, you don't know until you know, until you're sitting in those and you're like, oh, this is pretty cool. And what's been interesting a lot of times, and we say this all the time as Vistage members, okay, a person comes in with a subject, but okay, that really doesn't apply to me. Well, you get down into the weeds a little bit and you're like, oh, that absolutely does apply to me. And it's been interesting how many times that has happened over the years. And I would say the executive sessions, the speakers, I mean, top notch, unbelievable amount of speakers, get you think very, very really in depth to thought process that you either had before or didn't, and then are things you didn't even know about, and the things that they bring to the table. Those executive speakers. That was another thing I didn't see coming. You hear about it, but you don't really appreciate it until you're sitting in one of those rooms and one of those speakers that would cost you thousands of dollars to bring in to yourself if you wanted to speak to your executive committees of your own company. But you're getting a piece of that, and that's another huge value add I didn't see coming. But I will tell you, those not only is I do enjoy working through problems, with business owners in our community, but also I really love the executive speakers that come in and really challenge your thought processes.
The one yesterday looked right at you and said no. That was funny.
He and I still are not done with that conversation. I'll be having a call.
I love it.
I have a feeling he's going to win regardless. But
that's what he came in for.
Yeah.
I have a story that's about you that you have no idea I want to tell.
Oh, Lord.
And we're on tape, so.
Okay, how many more minutes? Okay, we got a couple more minutes left. That's it.
So, for folks, one of the things that I like to think about is the future. So, setting a vision for the future, like picking the future and building to it. And I have a mantra that says, make it great in 2028. And the first time I said that in your presence, my memory is, whatever, David.
That's true.
Whatever. And the request was, pick a day in the year 2028, then write about what is going on that day in 2028. Now, my story is that when you said, oh, whatever, we kept having a conversation, and then you did write it. And then my story is, when you wrote that, you actually said, well, I can't now wait until I have that. I got to have that now.
Yes.
Am I close? Is that story
100%.
reasonable?
I mean, it was a great practice, and now we live it as a company. I mean, I've added a little phrase to your in there. Make it great by 28. I'm out.
Oh.
So
okay.
My team knows that here at SRA that I really do want to go and get out in 28. And it's not I'll be 60.
Yeah.
And it's a good time to. I'll never leave the company.
Right.
But the good thing is what you put that on the table, and I think having a plan is huge, because we deal with that. You deal with that more than I do. I work with business owners too around the country, and I'm always kind of shocked about hey man, what is your succession here? What are you doing? I mean, what do you run a unique business in a very rural community, and who's going to buy your company? All those things come up, and the fact that we have a plan in place right now, thanks to Vistage, thanks to your prompting those questions and ideas, put a roadmap together. And now it's, to your point, I visually can see it. Right. And if I had not done that exercise, I think you'd, I don't want to say rolling around in the mud, but at the same time, it's like, well, when is that day going to come?
Right.
And now that it's there and it's been said, and I've said it out loud enough to where it's going to happen.
Nice.
That's just, and Vistage, not just through your leadership on that, but also just Vistage in general. Again, and these are the risk things that as business owners we get busy. Mm-hmm. It's what we do. I have is a business running you, or are you running the business? And I would tell you, if you are finding yourself where the business is running you, I think you're crazy not to look into any groups, but mostly Vistage groups, to be able to help manage that. And I think that's another thing I think that really brought value to me from a Vistage member was, elevating yourself as the owner or as the CEO of the company, and don't let the company run you, you run it. And I think Vistage kind of inspires you to do that, because you're around people that are doing that, and you're seeing it. You're seeing with certain business owners or hired CEOs or whatever, that they're professional business owners, and they're not, there's nothing worse than a business running you. I think it runs you down over time. And I think Vistage kind of gives you that plan, that direction. If anything, you have a place to vent, right? And those are things that, as a leader of a company, is very hard to do sometimes. You can't vent to your subordinates. You can't vent to your wife. Your wife doesn't, you can only do so many times, and this gives you a great outlet that I think, to me, mitigates your risk as a business owner, and that's really, I would say, from our perspective as a company that helps risk management.
Right.
This is just one more avenue that we can help business owners and really get the word out. So, David, thanks for joining us. If they want to reach out to you, what's the best way to reach out to you? Either obviously they can always come through us as listeners. Happy to refer you. And then two, if is there a way to get a hold of you, especially if you're in the Boise area?
Yeah, well, if you're in the Boise area, you can always reach out to me. LinkedIn, David.Spann at VistageChair.com is the email. You can also go on to the website, the corporate website, which is Vistage.com. That's a more general construct, but also calling you and getting references.
Yeah, always happy to reach. If you guys want to talk to David, reach out through us for sure. That's another thing we didn't get a chance to talk about, but just the vastness of Vistage around the country, and those opportunities to talk to members as well is huge as well.
It's not just here in Idaho. Yeah. We're literally in all countries
around the world. Yeah, exactly. So, hey, thanks for joining us today. Hope you guys got something out of that. If you were always curious about Vistage, hopefully that answers some of your questions. And if you guys are interested in looking into it yourself, by all means, reach out to us. I know David knows a lot of the chairman Vistage members around the country. But hey, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks.